Hi everyone! We are continuing our journey on what are we made of, and we're going to discuss DNA. So, the genetic material or the genome. The genome is all of the genetic material or information that is collected in one cell. You can see here is chromosomes or all the units of DNA condensed in the nucleus. So the genome here is all of our chromosomes condensed, in the DNA condensed into chromosomes, condensed, and makes up our genome. So it is all of our genetic material, and you can see it. It is one large strand, one chromosome. So, what is DNA and what does it do? So, DNA is a molecule with a double helix structure. And what does DNA do? It stores all of our genetic information that or we need to develop, function, and reproduce. And now that we know what DNA is, that it stores our information and it gets passed down in reproduction, we're going to spend most of our time talking about structure and why DNA structure is important, and then how it links back to information. So, DNA structure. So, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it is represented by nucleotides or nucleotide, one subunit. So, one subunit looks like this and can be broken down into three parts. And here are the three parts. One in orange, or the nitrogenous base, here circled in orange. Here circled in purple, or this green section, is the sugar. Or here circled in blue, this yellow structure, is the phosphate. So we have a nitrogenous base, a sugar, and a phosphate. And that makes up DNA, or one nucleotide subunit. So if we look deeper into DNA, if we look a little bit closer and we look at the nitrogenous bases, so we're zooming in here on our orange structure, our nitrogenous base on our nucleotide subunit. There are four different nitrogenous bases. There's cytosine, or C, thymine, or T, adenine, or A, guanine, or G. You should definitely know the names and letters. You do not need to memorize the structures, but you should know that there's four and that they're corresponding letters. And they are what make DNA a little bit different. They make up four different nitrogenous bases. So let's look a little bit closer at the structure of DNA. So to build DNA, we need to have a DNA backbone, and it is made up of a sugar phosphate backbone. So we talked about the nitrogenous base, the orange structure. So let's talk about the yellow and the green structure, the phosphate and the sugar. The phosphate and sugar combine together with the other phosphate and sugar of other nucleotides and form this backbone. So you can see the phosphate here combines with the sugar of another nucleotide, and then we start to form a backbone. So that's what starts to make the structure of DNA. And the the nitrogenous bases, the A, T, C, and G, kind of hang out here in the middle. So we have a backbone of sugar and phosphates that bind together, and the nitrogenous bases hang out in the middle. So let's talk again about the nitrogenous bases. There are two types of bases that you should know about. There are pyrimidines, the T and the C. They are one ring structures or single ring or one ring to rule them all. If you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings. So thiamine and cytosine, you can see in their molecular structure, they only have one ring here and one ring here. Purines, adenine and guanine, have two rings. So there's a ring here and a ring here, and guanine has a ring here and a ring here. So purines, two rings. Pyrimidines, one ring. So thiamine, T and C, pyrimidines. Adenine, A, G, purines. And one way to remember this a mnemonic, AG, pure as gold. Purines, pure as gold. So these bind together. Purines bind with pyrimidines. So A binds with T, and the apple goes in the tree, and G binds with C, or the car goes in the garage. So A always binds with T, or adenine always binds with thiamine, and guanine always binds with cytosine, or G always binds with C. And a good mnemonic to remember that is apple in the tree or car goes in the garage. So apple in the tree, car goes in the garage. Adenine binds with thiamine. Guanine binds with cytosine. So it's always a two-ring structure binds with a single ring structure. Otherwise, DNA would be unbalanced if you bound two ring structures with two ring structures and one ring structures. So we're always binding two ring structures with one ring structures. Adenine and thymine, guanine and cytosine. So these are the base pairing rules. And so how does DNA become double-stranded? So let's go back to what our DNA looks like. So we have our sugar phosphate backbone. Remember, here's our phosphate and here's our sugar. And this sugar binds to the next nucleotide's phosphate. And here's the sugar. And then we're binding to the next phosphate and we're creating this nice backbone. And then we have our nitrogenous base, right? So we are binding a one ring with a two ring here. We're going to bind one purine with one pyrimidine. And here we're going to bind a two ring structure with a one ring structure. And so on and so forth down the DNA. And so it lines up. The bases line up, the backbone twists, and then bam, you get a double helix. So this is what it looks like. We have thymine binds to adenine, guanine binds to cytosine, and then our backbone begins to twist, and that's how we get a double helix. So then how does our DNA, how do all these molecular structures, when we're talking about purines and pyrimidines and backbones, how does DNA store information? It's really the order of the bases, of those nitrogenous bases, creates the genetic code, and that equals information. So the order of these nitrogenous bases here in the middle is what creates a code. So it's going to create a letter code, and that encodes for proteins for our cells. Our cells are going to make certain proteins, which then is going to express a certain way in our cells. And that is how we create humans in different genetic ways. So we're going to get different types of proteins that express in different types of ways based on these letter codes. So the order of the bases create a genetic code which gives information to our cells to create proteins. And then to give you just a little health link for DNA, gout, we want to talk about gout, is a disease of purines. So remember again what purines are. Take a second. Which ones are the purines in the DNA? Purine, right? What was the good mnemonic? Pure as gold, adenine and guanine. And this is Henry VIII. He famously suffered from gout. Gout was known as a king's disease. Wealthy people back in the olden days would suffer from gout because they could afford to binge on very rich food and wine. And today, actually, this disease is on the rise because we have access to these types of foods, very rich foods, red meats, lots of heavy red meats and oils and fats and wine. Purine rich foods are broken down into uric acid in our digestion process. And then what happens is that uric acid then crystallizes in our, can crystallize in joints in our body. And you can see here it's in like the fingers and toes and can get in your ankles and then cause this like horrific painful swelling where you can't move your fingers or walk very well. It's very painful. And excess purine in your foods and your bodies can result in gout and can cause a very serious problem. So it was known as a king's disease and is on the rise today. So definitely be careful what you eat. And DNA health is everywhere.